Late at night, conditions across the region appeared stable on the surface. Most cities were quiet, civilian movement was minimal, and no emergency alerts had been issued to the public. Despite this outward calm, military systems across Eastern Europe were operating at full capacity. Radar stations were active, communication networks were monitored continuously, and command centers were fully staffed. Aircraft maintenance crews were on duty, missile units were in position, and strategic coordination was ongoing. At 11:47 p.m., Russian forces initiated a large-scale military assault against Ukraine's northern front. The operation focused on defensive positions near the city of Chernihiv, a strategically important location due to its proximity to the capital and key supply routes. Russian engineering units were deployed ahead of advancing ground forces. These units used heavy engineering explosives to neutralize Ukrainian minefields and defensive barriers. Once these obstacles were cleared, armored vehicles and support units were able to move forward with reduced resistance. At the same time, air operations began across multiple regions. Explosions were reported over Kyiv, indicating the activation of long-range strike capabilities. Russia committed advanced aircraft early in the operation, signaling the importance of rapid impact. Su-30SM fighter jets, each valued at approximately $80 million, led the first wave. These aircraft crossed the border at high speed and operated in coordinated formations. Shortly afterwards, Su-57 stealth aircraft entered the operational zone at high altitude. Each Su-57 is estimated to cost more than $100 million and is designed to reduce radar visibility and increase survivability in contested airspace. Cruise missiles were launched from naval vessels positioned at sea and from mobile ground-based launch systems. These missiles traveled at speeds exceeding 1,000 miles per hour and were guided toward pre-selected targets. Key objectives included bridges, highways, and logistical infrastructure essential for civilian movement and military resupply. Several strategic bridges were destroyed during the strikes, causing immediate disruption. Civilian vehicles became stranded due to collapsed roadways, and military transport routes were rendered unusable. The northern access corridors to Kyiv were placed under direct threat, while heavy artillery fire reached areas near the city's outer boundaries. Ukrainian radar systems detected dozens of incoming aerial targets simultaneously. This confirmed that the operation was not limited to a localized engagement, but represented a major escalation in the northern theater. In response, Ukraine activated its integrated air defense network. Patriot PAC-3 interceptor systems were launched to engage incoming missiles. These interceptors travel at nearly 3,000 miles per hour and are designed to target high-speed threats. However, each interceptor missile costs approximately $4 million, making sustained defensive use economically challenging. Inside protected command facilities, Ukrainian military leaders assessed the developing situation. Missile inventories were being depleted rapidly, and financial limitations became increasingly clear. Russian forces demonstrated the capacity to continue launching high-cost missiles throughout the night. Ukraine, however, faced constraints in maintaining prolonged missile interception. Continued reliance on defensive systems alone risked exhausting available resources without reducing the enemy's ability to strike. As a result, Ukrainian command determined that a strategic shift was necessary. The existing defensive posture was adjusted to incorporate preventive operations. The revised objective focused on neutralizing weapon systems before they could be deployed. This required targeting the infrastructure supporting missile and air operations rather than intercepting threats after launch. Airfields, fuel depots, ammunition storage sites, and logistical hubs located inside Russian territory were identified as priority targets. Military planners conducted cost-effectiveness assessments to guide operational decisions. Analysis showed that destroying grounded aircraft or fuel reserves required significantly fewer resources than intercepting missiles during flight. This economic calculation became central to the next phase of operations. Ukraine expanded the use of unmanned aerial systems to execute this strategy with reduced financial risk. Attack drones became a primary tool in these operations. Each drone cost approximately $20,000 and was constructed using readily available materials. Despite their low cost, the drones carried effective explosive payloads capable of damaging critical infrastructure. They were launched in coordinated groups to increase the likelihood of mission success. Launch platforms included small, mobile vehicles that could be repositioned. quickly to avoid detection. Drone operators controlled missions from concealed and mobile command units. These operators relied on real-time data links and pre-programmed navigation systems. The drones flew at altitudes below 300 feet, which reduced their visibility to large radar systems optimized for higher altitude targets. This flight profile allowed the drones to approach targets with limited warning. Primary targets for these drone operations were fuel depots located within Russian territory. Multiple drones reached the Smolensk region and struck fuel storage facilities supporting military operations. Upon impact, large diesel storage tanks ignited. Fires spread rapidly across storage areas, destroying significant quantities of fuel. This disruption directly affected the mobility of Russian ground forces and limited their ability to sustain extended operations. Russian air defense systems attempted to respond but encountered difficulties. Panzer air defense units, valued at approximately $15 million each, struggled to track and engage small, low-flying drones. Anti-aircraft fire was deployed, but response times were insufficient to prevent multiple strikes. While some drones were intercepted, others successfully reached their targets. As fuel supplies were destroyed, logistical challenges began to affect Russian operational planning. Later that night, Russian bomber units were placed on standby for a planned morning strike. 18 Su-34 bombers were positioned at Morozovsk Air Base. These aircraft are designed for heavy strike missions and were loaded with missiles intended for use in the next phase of the operation. Fuel trucks were parked near the aircraft to facilitate rapid deployment. This configuration, while efficient for launch preparation, created a high-risk environment in the event of fire or explosion. Russian command assessed the airbase as secure due to its distance from the front line. However, Ukrainian intelligence had monitored the site for several months. Satellite imagery was analyzed to identify aircraft parking locations, fuel storage areas, and operational patterns. Target data was reviewed and confirmed repeatedly to ensure accuracy. A Ukrainian MiG-29 aircraft launched Storm Shadow missiles toward the airbase. These missiles are designed to follow terrain contours, allowing them to reduce exposure to radar detection. Using pre-programmed digital navigation systems, the missiles traveled toward their assigned coordinates. The first missile struck the primary fuel storage area, igniting approximately 500,000 liters of aviation fuel. The resulting fires spread rapidly across the airfield. Multiple Su-34 bombers were destroyed by heat and secondary explosions. Debris scattered across the runway, causing structural damage that prevented immediate use. As a result, air operations from Morozovsk Air Base were halted. The planned morning strike was canceled, and the 559th Bomber Aviation Regiment lost a significant portion of its operational capability. As daylight approached, aerial engagements occurred over northern Ukraine. Ukrainian F-16 and MiG-29 aircraft engaged Russian fighter jets attempting to regain air control. Advanced radar systems allowed Ukrainian pilots to detect targets at extended ranges. Russian aircraft attempted missile launches during the engagement, while Ukrainian pilots employed defensive maneuvers and deployed flares to counter heat-seeking missiles. The aerial engagement lasted approximately 20 minutes. During this period, Russian aircraft losses were estimated at approximately $400 million. Ukraine lost 2 aircraft in the encounter. Despite these losses, the overall operational outcome favored Ukraine due to the significant imbalance in financial and material impact. The total cost of Ukraine's combined operations, including drone strikes and missile launches, was estimated at approximately $17 million. In contrast, damage inflicted on Russian forces exceeded $900 million. This disparity highlighted the effectiveness of targeting high-value assets with relatively low-cost systems. Aircraft production and pilot training require several years, making rapid replacement of losses difficult. Operational pressure increased on Russian forces, particularly in the northern region. Air bases previously considered secure were now vulnerable to long-range strikes. Distance from the front line no longer provided assurance against attack. Military planning on both sides was forced to adapt to the increased role of unmanned systems and precision strikes. The planned New Year missile attack against Ukraine did not occur. Power infrastructure across Ukraine remained operational, reducing civilian disruption. The shift from reactive defense to preventive targeting demonstrated a modern approach to conflict management. Cost efficiency, logistical disruption, and preemptive action emerged as decisive factors in operational success. This sequence of events illustrates the evolving nature of modern warfare. Military effectiveness is increasingly determined by the ability to neutralize high-value assets with minimal expenditure. Strategic planning now prioritizes prevention over interception and efficiency over volume. This concludes the analysis of the operation. Thank you for watching.